Today somehow feels rather special. I've gotten a request from Jamie Martinez to check out an anime about hunting vampires. It's kind of funny, really. Even though my skills were more specialized in ghosts than stuff like werewolves and vampires, it's still nice to reflect back on the good old days of hunting and capturing the supernatural. Rather if the mission was successful or, well, some still need to be captured. Especially the more dangerous ones. But anyways, I'm sure it'll still be fun regardless on checking how supernatural hunters from another class do their work. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Several hours of binge watching later.
What the fridge is this? I'm just absolutely lost about what I even watch! What am I even supposed to do with this review? Am I even allowed to show anything when everybody gets sliced and diced like cheese and fruit? How am I even gonna get out of this one?
Maybe some research could help me out. Created in 1997 by Kotua Hirano, Hellsing began as a 10-volume manga that looks into a special organization that hunts down vampires and ghouls, with their star member being a vampire himself, Alucard. The manga ended up becoming quite popular that it ended up with its own 13-episode anime series in 2001. However, that's not the one we're looking at. What we shall be talking about is the OVA series Hellsing Ultimate, made between 2006 and 2012. The big difference between this one and the first series is that Ultimate sticks much closer to the manga, on top of having the Major and his Nazi group, the Millennium, be the villains of the series, and separate it all in 10 parts just like how the manga did. It's not necessarily the most renowned manga that's been created, but this, along with the Castlevania series, are great examples of how the Japanese like to put in a little spin to the Dracula lore. Now, I'm not saying that this has some strong connections with the Bram Stoker novel, but it is nice to see how the Japanese would like to make some great vampire action. That is, if we know what the fridge is even going on in the first place! As much as I would love to explain to you guys about the series plot, it makes it so hard to do so because it keeps on switching what the story's main focus should be. As it begins, it seems to be about a policewoman called Ceres Victoria who is now a vampire in training under the Hellsing organization. But nope, now it's about how Alucard fights off different vampires with unique abilities. But nope, now it's a giant three-way war against the Hellsing organization, the Nazis' Millennial group, and the Vatican's Iscariot organization fighting in a wasteland that used to be London. But nope, it just ends off being an allegory on the concept of humanity. Because it seems so confused on what the core of Hellsing should be, it makes it really difficult to follow in a narrative standpoint. Not to mention always questioning the importance of each character and their purpose in all of this. Now, I'm not saying that the story and the characters are bad at all. Conceptually, it has some really good ideas, especially with the whole setting of the Hellsing organization. On top of that, the characters themselves are quite fascinating as well, each given time to fully present who they are, what they want to achieve, their unique abilities, and the development they experience throughout the story. It has all the tools necessary to create something that could potentially be grand, but because it keeps on passing the baton between Integra, Ceres, and Alucard on who's the main character, and how the story is a little lost with what it wants to talk about, the problem is not what it offers, but how it delivers it, making it not only hard to follow the story, but even understanding who these characters are.
I take it you're still feeling uncomfortable with the situation?
You're an idiot.
In fact, it's not just in the story's core that it feels confused, but it's also in the tone. For the most part, it plays like an action-packed horror series, but once in a while...
What is this? My hotel is a trash heap on the edge of town.
Oh, the iniquity! Damn you, bourgeoisie! Damn you!
Okay, I'm not against putting in some comedy in something that's mostly dramatic, but this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, take Death Note for example. Although it's usually serious and has a very high death count like Hellsing, it does include some comedy in a subtle manner, allowing it to give the series some charm and charisma to the characters. Here, however, it bombastically turns itself into this over-the-top cartoon that always feels like it comes right out of nowhere and absolutely out of place. It's because of this why sometimes I feel like Ceres is in the wrong anime. Also, can we please take a moment to discuss why the fridge is the spirit of Alucard's gun, freaking Bruce Willis?
The two of us will have a savage pedal to the metal burn through Nakatomi Plaza. Or you can help me rescue Ving Rhames from getting sodomized wielding nothing but a samurai sword.
This is ridiculous. I'm going to leave now.
Believe me guys, I really want to like this. It has all the right ideas to go and create a great anime. But because of the poor execution, it's just really hard to follow. What is it about? Who is it about? Who the fridge knows? But I will give it credit, however, that there is one thing that it actually does where it knows what direction to take and how to deliver it. And that is in the animation. The entire style of the anime stays very true to Hirano's design, and the result comes with a mostly fantastic looking series. Although it doesn't know what to do with the story, it does know that it wants to be fully action-packed, and it makes sure to squeeze that in for every second that it holds. Like I said before, many of the characters are quite fascinating and can each offer something new to the table. It's with this that makes the action so creative with all the different weapons and powers, whether it be from Alucard, Ceres, Walter, Alexander Anderson, or all the other vampires working for Millennium. You could tell how it specializes in fight scenes with a great amount of intensity and great use of character animation. Oh yeah, almost forgot. This series may not necessarily be for everyone, since it is kind of violent. Okay, it is violent. Really violent. Perhaps even too violent. And I don't mean that like so violent it's offensive. I mean that it's too violent to be taken seriously. The amount of blood that just gushes out like a sprinkler, and how body parts keep flying off everywhere like the human body is made out of clay, makes it less brutal and more goofy. Sure, it's still not a pretty sight, but when this is perfectly normal for the show and the body parts has to come off every 5 minutes, you just become accustomed to it and you can only think about what mutilation will they think of next. Maybe this is not necessarily a criticism per se, but it'll depend on who you ask if this is considered either absurd or highly entertaining. But what would count as criticism here is how the characters are designed. I don't mind this interpretation of the anime style, but the problem with it is that it has this need to put in too much detail to the point that it no longer makes sense. Because of this, some of the expressions on the characters make them look distorted and give them an uncomfortably weird look. Like some, including Alucard and Anderson, would always have this giant grin on their face that makes them look like a haunted mansion ghost. If we see their eyes too close, they look like nipples, and it's weird how they look more normal when they are mutilated than when they are alive. Okay, sometimes. At least it's understandable where all the focus has gone. It's not about the core of the story or who is taking center stage, but it's all done on the visual aspect and all the action. But you know what's actually funny is that those fight scenes are actually the best way to describe the anime itself. It's beautiful to look at, and you can see a huge amount of creativity that's been put into it, but man did it leave such a mess. At first glance, Hellsing Ultimate has all the right tools to create an amazing anime. It holds all the right concepts, an interesting setting, fascinatingly complex characters, well-crafted animation, intense fight scenes, and a nice take on vampire lore. However, the way that it executes all of this ends up making the series absolutely confusing. The narrative has no idea on what aspect to focus on, so it ends up going all over the place, making the show rather difficult to follow, on top of the animation getting weird and often over the top, whether it be with the blood or the cartoony moments. If I have to make a recommendation, this is an absolute must-watch for any gorehounds out there. anyone who just wants to check bodies cut into pieces in a million ways, or see how the characters paint the entire show red, you'd most likely be more than satisfied with it. Although it is a relatively short series with only 10 episodes, it makes up for it by making each of them about 45 to 50 minutes, with the exception of a few, and the finale being almost 70 minutes long. As an anime in itself, this is just a 6 out of 10. But for something to watch vampires fight each other and violence galore, there can be no other that is as satisfying as this.
Amen!
You know, the one good thing that I would probably take from all this, well, if I have to narrow all the aspects down to just one, is that this anime is actually a pretty good guide to let you know what would happen if the Nazis would rise again, or similar hate groups. What would be their strategies? Where would they go first? What weapons would they use to attack? Who would they go and recruit? But most importantly, why?
To put it in the simplest possible terms, Fraulein, our purpose is a total absence of purpose. That there are some people in this world, certain irredeemable louts, for whom the means does not require an end.
And it is on this day that the world has finally known the truth about our history, that Adolf Hitler and his legion of Nazis be cray-cray. Take this knowledge and move forth. See you later, dudes.
Ugh.